Okay, let's dive right into this developing story. We're talking about an armed man, a very high security location, and tragically, a fatal encounter. We're going to unpack the events at Mar-a-Lago exactly as they're detailed in the source material, covering everything from the incident itself all the way to the analysis that came after.
So picture this. It's the early hours of February 22nd. A man walks up to the north gate of the property. And what he's carrying, well, it's what appeared to be a shotgun and a fuel can. Right away, this sets the stage for what would become an incredibly tense and ultimately deadly confrontation with law enforcement.
So, how exactly did this all play out? Well, to really get a grip on what happened, we need to walk through the timeline, just as it was reported by the officials who were right there on the scene.
And as you can see from this timeline, these events unfolded incredibly quickly. I mean, almost right after this person was spotted at the gate, he was confronted by both Secret Service agents and a sheriff's deputy. From what the reports say, the whole situation escalated in just a matter of moments, and it all ended with law enforcement opening fire. The suspect was then pronounced deceased right there at the scene. And this quote, this really gets to the critical moment just as the Palm Beach County Sheriff described it. You see, the suspect was ordered to drop what he was holding, and according to the official statement, his response, putting down the gas can but then raising the shotgun, that was the action that prompted the agents to use lethal force.
Okay, so let's just quickly break down the key details from the scene itself. We know the suspect had what looked like a shotgun and a fuel can. Now, a couple of really important points here. Thankfully, no law enforcement personnel were injured. And, perhaps most critically, the former president and his family weren't even there. They were actually in Washington, D.C. when this whole thing happened. All right, so with the immediate threat neutralized, the investigation, of course, pivoted right away to a huge question. Who exactly was this man at the gate? Well, authorities pretty quickly identified the suspect as Austin Tucker Martin, a young man who was from North Carolina. So let's build out his profile a little bit. He was just 21 years old, and his journey to Mar-a-Lago actually started back in North Carolina, where his family had already reported him missing the day before. Now, investigators believe he bought that shotgun after leaving home and driving all the way down to Florida. And when they looked into his background, he was described as an artist, someone who even posted sketches of golf courses online. It's a really interesting picture that starts to emerge. Okay, so now that we've kind of established the what and the who of the situation, the analysis and the source material naturally turn to the why and the how. Experts started to chime in with their take on the nature of this attempt. And you can see here, one former FBI agent quoted in the source material gave a pretty blunt assessment of the suspect's methods. He basically said the whole thing looked like a complete amateur job, suggesting it just didn't have any of the signs of a professional, planned-out operation. So what led him to that conclusion? I mean, what evidence actually supports this whole amateur theory? Well, the analysis presented in the material points to two really big indicators. The reasoning behind calling this amateur really boils down to two key things. First, there was a total lack of situational awareness. I mean, the fact that Trump was at a dinner in D.C. was being widely reported on the news. The suspect just didn't seem to know. And second, his tools were pretty unconventional. A shotgun and a gas can? Those aren't what you'd call typical assassination tools. Usually, that would be something like a concealed pistol or a long-range rifle. And this is where the conversation in the source material starts to broaden out. Commentators began connecting this specific event to what they describe as a much wider and, frankly, more troubling pattern of political violence. Yeah, the number 3. This is pretty significant. According to the commentators we're citing, this incident at Mar-a-Lago marks the third publicly known attempt on Donald Trump's life in just the last few years. And one source really puts this into a striking historical perspective. Think about it. In the entire almost 250-year history of the United States, 4 presidents have been assassinated. These are described as exceedingly rare events. But then you contrast that with what we're seeing now, 3 publicly known attempts on one political figure in just a few years. It's this contrast that's leading some commentators to suggest the whole threat matrix is really escalating. And building right on that idea, one commentator argued that the heated political climate is fostering something they actually call an assassination culture. The idea here, in their view, is that this kind of violence is becoming normalized, something that just has to stop. And all of this really leaves us with a final, pretty big question to think about. Regardless of the suspect's motives, or how sophisticated he was or wasn't, the fact is, a secure perimeter was breached. So when that happens,
what does it really reveal about the nature of the threats we're facing today? It really makes you wonder about the challenges of security in this polarized, unpredictable, and often decentralized world.